On today's show, just how good is Linus Ullmark? We'll discuss the NHL Network's most recent top 10 NHL goalies.
And we have a special guest. It's Sean Furfaro, the host of Rogers TV for the Kitchener Rangers. He tells us all about the Kitchener Sens.
All that and more on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter. You can find the podcast everywhere you get yours, including on YouTube. Today is Monday, August 12th, and Pilsy, talk about getting mad at a list. The NHL Network putting up a top 10 goalies right now, and Linus Ullmark finds himself at number 10.
Hey, at least we have a goalie in the top 10, Ross, rather than the bottom 10 of the league as a hashtag goalie-friendly show. Right off the bat, I'm stoked about that. I'm stoked to have you back in the podcast. Let's see if you still know how to do this. But having a goalie that is considered league-wide as top 10, even if it's the 10th one, is so refreshing as a Sens fan that do I think maybe he could have been bumped up a spot or maybe even two? Sure. But I'm not even that mad at this list. I'm just happy to be on the list.
Well, first, you're giving out the magic of podcasts because people think I was back Friday. We did our 2019 5-year draft recap that may have been recorded a couple weeks ago. I'll touch on my trip at the end of today's show. Great time, but it's exciting to be back, and we're 1 month away from a rookie tournament for the Ottawa Senators. So hockey's starting to be in the air. It's a little chillier at nighttime, and that means hockey is around the corner. Now, Linus Ullmark was higher on this list last year, and you understand why. He had that historic season with the Boston Bruins, goes 40 wins, 6 losses, just 1 OT loss, a .938 save percentage. It was an impossible task to ask him to reduplicate that list. I think that's redundant there because reduplicate.
I like that.
There's the answer, Pilsy. I don't know how to do this whole podcasting thing, but no. Look, Linus Ullmark, I understand the NHL Network maybe pushing him down a spot or two. I believe he was at number 6 last summer. He goes down to number 10 this year. But looking at the names in front of them, and if you're watching on YouTube, we'll pull it up right now. I mean, it's hard to argue. There is such a talented top 10 in the National Hockey League. I do think that the tier ends just about here, though. Number 1 was Igor Shesterkin. Number 2 was Connor Hellebuyck with the Winnipeg Jets. Tampa Bay Lightning goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky at number 3. This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Ullmark's old running mate, Jeremy Swayman at number 4. Ilya Sorokin at number 5.
I got a problem with Swayman at 4. Like 6 spots ahead of Ullmark is... I don't think that's right. Like we talked about it, Ross. We probably have Swayman down a couple spots from here and Bobrovsky up a couple spots.
Well, I mean, his numbers on the same team as Ullmark were just so much better. He had a .001 higher save percentage.
Yeah. Where did they decide that that gives him 6 spots better? And to have him to have Swayman, the guy outside the big 3, I think it's fair to say Shesterkin, Hellebuyck, and Vasilevsky, those are the top 3 goalies in the league. Whether you want to switch the order of them, I don't care that much. I think that's fine. But Swayman is not the first guy on the outside looking in my opinion.
Well, look at number 7, Sergei Bobrovsky, because I was about to say that, look, Swayman had an unbelievable 2 rounds of the playoffs, especially round 1 against Toronto. But Bobrovsky was even better the entire playoffs. He made a behind-the-back save, for crying out loud, got his team to and champion the Stanley Cup. So for me, Bobrovsky should be number 4. If not, maybe even sneak it into that top 3, because this is right now. This isn't taking the future into consideration. This is right now. If you need one goalie to win a game, man, why not Sergei Bobrovsky? He was unbelievable for the entirety of that playoff run. They've got Thatcher Demko for the Vancouver Canucks at number 6, Jake Ottinger at number 8, UC Saros at 9, of course, Linus Ullmark at number 10. Look, Ottinger finished the year unbelievably strong. The NHL Network then put out kind of the list one by one and how guys were last season. And in his last 25 games, Ottinger had 19 wins down the stretch for the Dallas Stars and a real good save percentage, about .920. So I think that there's just such a good talent pool of goaltenders. And the real shame is there isn't a single Canadian goalie on this list.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought Demko's not Canadian?
American.
Oh, huh.
So Team USA has Connor Hellebuck, Jeremy Swayman, Thatcher Demko, Jake Ottinger. 4 of the top 10 goalies in the league right now. You've got 2 Russians in the top 3 and 3 overall, or 4 overall. So you got 4 Americans and 4 Russians. You got Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, Sorokin, and Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
And then 1 Finn and 1 Swede. Numbers 9 and 10.
Wow. I mean, that's sad. Yeah, Canada's goaltending has really fallen off. Like, we need that pipeline of French-Canadian goaltenders back in the mix here.
Oh, I know. I don't understand what's happened. Even just like you knew every couple of years with Team Canada, you just have an outstanding goaltender at the World Juniors. And I mean, Devin Levi has been very good on his way up, wasn't at the same level, and it would have been impossible to expect it unless you're a Sabres fan going into last year, where they thought he could just step into the NHL and be that 940 college goalie that he was. Just can't happen like that. But he's probably the best hope to crack this list. No, because otherwise you're looking at Aiden Hill as a guy who has a Stanley Cup, but does he really have the pedigree or the consistency to be on this list? Like, I don't know who starts for Team Canada at the Four Nations tournament. Like Jordan Binnington, maybe? I mean, I wouldn't be super confident in that, although he's been in big games too. So funny enough, like as I'm talking this through, it's like those are 2 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winning goaltenders, even less because Vasilevsky's got a pair for himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably
and
looking
Kepper,
at
another Canadian goalie.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you're probably looking at Aiden Hill and Jordan Binnington duking it out for Canada's goalie, which doesn't exude the most amount of confidence, especially when you're looking at Team USA and well, I guess Russia. We don't have to worry about them in the Four Nations, but
can we borrow a goalie from Russia?
Let's just get Linus Ullmark signed to a long-term deal in the nation's capital and make him an honorary Canadian.
Well, I mean, Daniel Alfredsson's got the key to the city. He could just twist it, and there you go.
That's true. Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let us know your thoughts on the NHL Network's top 10 list of goaltenders. I don't see Joonas Korpisalo on that list.
I think he was on the outside, Ross. I think they had him at 11.
Yeah, maybe. Tied for 11. Somewhere between 11 and 50. He's right there. Maybe
11
64.
and 63. Or 65. Bad math.
65, 64. 32 times 2.
I said 65 for a reason.
All right. Hey, look, there's a lot coming up on today's show, including Sean Furfaro. Really excited to welcome him back to the show. All-time vibes guy. Just a great, happy-go-lucky character, and obviously knows his stuff about the Kitchener Rangers as well. We'll get to know Matthew Andonovski, not only him, but Lucas Ellinas, the Senators pick in the 4th round. First of 3 4th-round picks this year. Just a dog, sounds like, from the playoffs, the way he just always attacks and his mentality. And then we'll touch on the former Kitchener Rangers like Donovan Sabrango as well. So we'll get to that interview just after a quick word. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know FanDuel is the official online sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. I love sports. We all love sports. I love them so much. I don't want them to stop, but NHL and NBA playoffs are far gone. It's baseball time. The Olympics are done as well, but with FanDuel, you can keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do, grab your phone, open up your app, and you can bet anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers, not just the new ones, all customers with a booster bonus. How often? Daily. You heard it. Every single day, there is something for everyone all summer long. Go to fanduel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. Get your baseball bets in daily. Get your futures on the Ottawa Senators. Get your NFL futures. Get your NBA futures. Make sure you're ready for the season with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub, our very good friends in the heart of the Glebe. Go check out the GLEBE Central Pub at 779 Bank Street for great food, great drinks, and the vibes are free at the GCP. When you go to the GLEBE Central Pub, you know you're going to get good food, good service, everything you want in a classic restaurant environment, but they also want to make it feel like a neighborhood pub. They want it to be interactive. That's why they've got a ton of different events all throughout the week to make it feel like home away from home. Every Saturday night, they've got live music. Coming up this Saturday, the 17th, Chris Allaby will be hitting the stage at the GCP. They've also got a darts tournament on August 15th. That's happening later this week. All proceeds will go to support the family of Connor Durack going through a tough time. It's a $20 entry fee raffle. Registration at 5:30. Tournament starts at 6. That is at the GCP. They've lasted over 5 years, and that is a true testament to their commitment to the neighborhood. So go check them out. Have a pint and say what up to the Glebe Central Pub. Check them out at 779 Bank Street, right in the heart of the Glebe. Let them know that Locked On Senators sent you to the GCP, where the vibes are free. Now let's get to our interview with Rogers TV host, Sean Furfaro. All right, we now welcome a very special guest back to Locked On Senators for the second offseason in a row as the Kitchener Sens pipeline continues to grow. From Rogers TV, it's Sean Furfaro. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing today, sir?
Thanks, guys. It's great to be back. I'll tell you, in 25 years on PA and 20 years on TV, being named a friend of the show is right up there, right? It's been one of my goals, and now I've achieved it. Friend of the show. Love it.
So who do you know in the Sens scouting staff to make this connection continue to grow between Kitchener and Ottawa?
Well, I mean, I could tell you, but I'm Italian. We'd have to do some things after that.
Okay, keep your sources safe here. That's fair.
Close
That's fair. Yeah.
chest.
Well, and it's funny too because we've been talking about, now that Steve Staios is general manager, Michael Andlauer, of course, with their Bulldogs connection. Ross and I were connecting dots to every OHL prospect that was in this draft, and of course, the only OHL pick they make is with the Kitchener Rangers, Lucas Ellinas. What can you tell us about him and why that was such a great pick for the Sens and for Lucas, who was a fan of the team growing up?
I'll tell you this. I didn't get to know Luke until he joined the team early in the year, right? That was a trade that came in kind of unexpected. Nobody knew anything about him. He was kind of expected to be a highly touted rookie the year before, but some injuries. He ended up playing down a level lower. So Mike McKenzie always finds those diamonds in the rough, and he found Luke Ellinas and brought him in, and he just quietly became a really steady performer on this team. Third line guy, fourth line guy, earned his minutes. All of a sudden, he's doing the things out there that the coach wants to see. Coach Usiohokus really stresses hard work. Do the work. He yells it at every practice. Do the work, the results will come. We might not win tonight, but do the work. It's about creating habits. And Luke Ellinas bought into that system and elevated his game. And the trajectory of his game over the course of the year was a full 45-degree diagonal. It was unbelievable. By the end of the year, he was being called on to be used in some really important late game situations. By the time the playoffs rolled around, first round series against Erie, he had 2 goals in the very first game to set the tone against a really tough Erie Otters team. And then game 6 goes to overtime. He gets the overtime winner on the road in front of a really hostile crowd. This guy works so hard. He believes in the process. He believes in the system. He's incredibly humble, and I'm so excited for what he's going to bring to an NHL team, which it looks like it's going to be the Ottawa Senators.
That's awesome. We love the pick, and we saw a lot of the public scouting community say this guy could be poised for a breakout season upcoming. What's the Kitchener Rangers outlook? We know that there's ebbs and flows to junior and how there's graduates and how your pipeline has to turn over almost every 3-4 years. Where are the Kitchener Rangers in their competitive window? Because we'll get to one of their big pieces, Matthew Andonovski, and what he's going to bring this next season as well.
I think this is going to be a real breakout season for Lucas Ellinas, and here's why. You talk about that turnover, and you talk about the people that graduate or the people that leave to go on to pro contracts. Well, there's a lot of offense that's going to be lost this year for the Kitchener Rangers. And I think this year is going to be a struggle. We thought that last year, and then the team exceeded all expectations. But I think this year is going to be a struggle. I think the necessity of junior hockey and a team that is looking to compete for a Memorial Cup in a couple of years will lead to some trades. This year, I say that with no knowledge of anything that's coming. That's just my own personal opinion. But having said that, all these opportunities that have been created, these holes that have opened, are things that are places that Lucas Ellinas is going to slide right into. So there's going to be some first line opportunities. There's going to be some second line opportunities. And those opportunities might increase as you see people potentially moved out, and you see the draft class from last year and the draft class from this year starting to work in more minutes. I think Luke is going to be a huge part of the core that they're building towards potentially hosting the Memorial Cup and competing for the Memorial Cup in 2027.
For people that haven't watched Lucas Ellinas play, how would you describe his style?
It's funny because I asked him that when I first met him. I said, look at that camera, describe your style for me. He's like, I'm a hard worker. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to play a 200-foot game, and I'm going to do what the coach wants, and I'm going to be a good teammate. And that's what he is across the board. There's nothing not to love about this kid on the ice and off.
Yeah, and that rings true for a lot of these Sens draft picks. Like, a lot of the time you see the player and maybe you haven't heard of them, but then you see them on interviews, you hear people that work with them like yourself talk about them, and you realize the Senators are really focusing on trying to find not just the right players, but the right people as well. And that's great to hear that it seems like they got another one of those guys in Ellus.
Yeah, I really think you did. And you referenced that interview I did where he mentioned being a Sens fan. And that was actually my first, I work between the benches, right? I'm not up in the booth. I'm down at ice level. I interact with the players before, during, and after every single game. And I kind of had some token conversations with Luke down between the benches. But the first time I talked to him was that interview we did where he said, no, I was a Karlsson fan and I was a Sens fan growing up.
Nice.
And nobody was talking about a potential NHL drafted forward on that day in October when we spoke. And then all of a sudden, fast forward to now, and he's an NHL drafted player to his favorite team that he had growing up. I mean, this kid is just so humble, and I can't wait for what's going to come from him in the OHL this year and a pro hockey career after.
One of the breakout players last season was Matthew Andonovski. He just earned himself an NHL contract with his play, not only last season, but at development camp, showing that he can compete with other Sens prospects. Where was the biggest growth in his game, and how did you view his last season?
I'll say starters. I think he's the best defenseman in the league, top to bottom.
In the league?
I think in the OHL for sure. I know that on the coaches poll, he was. Let me just get my notes here. Yeah, he won 3 different categories in the coaches poll. He won best penalty killer, best body checker, and best defensive defenseman. Which really, from if you want someone to shut down, that's what you want. He's not. That's what you get in Matt Andonovski. He's not going to score a lot of goals, but I will say that's the improvement in his game this year. And when I talked to him just a couple of weeks ago, he said, I asked him, what do the Sens want to see you develop the most this year? And he said the offensive side of the game, because he went his first 2 years as a shutdown defenseman, pile of assists, no goals. And this year he added 7 goals and added an offensive side. And I'll tell you, so that picture that you just showed there for those that are watching, that was Matt Andonovski's first goal. So here's the story behind that, because he and I had a great moment. Is he hadn't had any goals in his first 2 years, and I knew he was poised for a breakout. I knew this was going to be yeah, that's right. And I knew this was his breakout year. And I went out on a limb 2 weeks before the home opener. I tweeted it out, and I told his family. I said, Matt Andonovski is going to score his first OHL goal in our home opener.
Nice.
And that's a lot of pressure to put on the kid. And as I said, I see them all between the benches before. So, and I always talk to Matt before the game. He's very loose. And he said, I saw your tweet. And I said, oh, sorry. And he's like, yeah, no pressure. Now I got to go out and score tonight. So he went out in the third period, first minute, scores the goal, and immediately celebrates. It's his first OHL goal. Turns and celebrates, points right to the glass, points right to me on the blow by. So of all the things that we've had, that was a really amazing moment. And that photo that I sent you, I had the opportunity to surprise Matt after the game. The trainer, Dan Leibold, gave me the puck. So I had the puck hidden in my pocket, and we did a post-game interview, and we talked about it, and I was able to present him with the puck. So it was pretty awesome.
In his 111th OHL game, and after growing other parts, that must have been such an amazing moment to be there for and be a part of, like you were. And I know you get to see these people as humans as much as hockey players. What can you tell us about Andonovski, the character?
The first time I met Matt Andonovski, he was 16 years old. It was his OHL priority selection day, and we did a Zoom interview 30 minutes after he was drafted. And he was this... He couldn't string a bunch of words together. He just kept saying, it's a dream come true. It's a dream come true. It's a dream come true. And I was like, this kid is kind of, a little odd, but he was so likable and so genuine and such a hard worker in his first year. And I just became a fan since day one. And a lot of players before the game, they go through their routines. They don't want to be disturbed, especially goalies, as you know. But Matt is very loose. He's very social. He's got a wonderful, wonderful sense of humor. He's a leader off the ice. I think he's a definite candidate for captain for the Kitchener Rangers this year. And I couldn't speak any higher of this guy. I mean, I know I kind of wax poetic when we talk here, and I love this guy and I love that guy. But I'm a Matt Andonovski guy, and I will always be a Matt Andonovski guy because he works hard. He's a true teammate, and that's just not with his players. That's with his coaches, with his trainers, with his equipment managers, with the event staff. Like he understands that there's more to what happens in the game than just what happens on the ice. Matt Andonovski is a Kitchener Ranger and a teammate the second he walks through the door of that arena until the moment he leaves. And I'm really fortunate to get to know him the way we did. And we have a little joking banter back and forth, and we have some fun down there. He likes to have a jujube on the way out to warm up, so I have a little bowl of jujubes right by the back monitor. He got mad at me one time when I forgot to put it out, but we got past it. We're okay now.
We'll get right back to our chat with Sean. First, a word from our friends at Mary J's.
Yes, Mary J's is a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area. 3 best friends wanted to follow their dreams, and through hard work and dedication, they now have 4 stores in the Ottawa area. You can check them out in Ottawa at Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. Mary J's has the best and newest products in the market. They're adding new stuff to the menu every single week to keep it fresh. Whether you're a rookie looking to try something new, or you're a grizzled vet and already know what you want and you want to be in and out of there quick, they got you. Mary J's offers competitive pricing. In fact, any store in Ottawa, they're going to price match. That means you're guaranteed to get the best price around when you go to Mary J's. And they got the best customer service. Ross and I can attest to that. We went to one of the stores and they helped us out big time. One of the owners, Dashy, is a diehard Sens fan. Absolute beauty. You'll usually find him at one of the stores. So go to Mary J's, say what up to Dashy, pick his brains about the Ottawa Senators and all the latest, greatest products that Mary J's has to offer. Check it out today, guys. Mary J's Dispensary.
Now let's get back to our interview with Sean Furfaro.
You mentioned that scoring goals was something he wanted to work on, especially with none in his OHL career. He did that with 7. But how is he able to go from 0 goals in 110 games to 7 goals without sacrificing the defensive game at all? If anything, Sean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like his defensive game got even better as he led the league in plus minus with a plus 58.
Plus 58.
How does that work?
That's the thing. And not only did he lead the league in plus minus, he led the league for the entire year. He jumped out to a
nice.
huge lead in plus minus 2 or 3 weeks into the season and was never not the leader in plus minus. And I'll tell you 2 other things that make it more impressive. For almost the entire year, while leading the league in plus minus, he was also leading the league in penalty minutes.
Hell yeah.
Get your head around that for a second, right?
That's awesome.
He's leading the league in plus minus, leading the league in penalty minutes. He actually ended up not leading. The leader had 128, he had 124, but he was right there.
Come on.
Right? How do you do both of those things and still become the best defensive defenseman in the OHL? Well, I'll tell you, one of the key contributing factors was UC Ahokas this year was pretty firm in his defensive pairings, especially on the top 2. Simon Motu and Cameron Reed, veteran and the rookie, were always on the same line, but Matt Andonovski and Hunter Brustevich were always defense partners. You could plan on number 4 and number 5 always being lined up together. And the offensive power of Hunter Brustevich, who set a record for team assists, that certainly contributed to Matt Antonovski getting some goal scoring, right?
He had 92 points.
Yeah, I still have a really old school method. Beside my monitor, Brandon, you might remember this from down between at the odd. I have my notes taped up on the board. Something happens, sure, I've got it on my screen, but I still write it on there so that I can look. So I'm writing Antonovski Brustevich on assists all the time. And all of a sudden, now I'm writing Endo over in the goal column a little more.
Nice.
So Hunter Brustevich's athletic ability created a lot more opportunities, right, for Matt Antonovski. All of a sudden, 2 people are on Hunter, well, Ando's open on the other point. So a lot of those opportunities came from that. Also, Matt Antonovski contributed in a huge way to Hunter Brustevich's point total. Just having that physical presence out there. Hunter said this in an interview a couple times. He's like, people know they're not going to mess with me because Ando's out there with me. And all of a sudden I have more opportunities than I would normally have as a defenseman. So those 2 both elevated each other's game to both end up with NHL contracts by the end of the year.
Whew. Yeah, that's a good D pair. And Ross, maybe if you have that the shoe photo that we're talking about handy here, we can put it up. But give us the backstory on this one, Sean.
So I'm a shoe guy, as you can see here. I was in the States last month, and I saw this pair of shoes, and it was it's a good price. And I'm like, I like these shoes, but I'm like, I don't wear a lot of green. They're green and yellow, green and gold. As you know, green and gold. You say it right there. I just don't think I can wear these colors, and you know why. I didn't go right out and say it, but they're London Knights colors, which is very difficult for me to wear.
Yeah.
So I said, it's a good price. They were $39. Can I really pass on these shoes? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a poll up, and I'm going to see what people vote for. And if enough people vote for it, I'll buy the shoes. I put the poll up. Within 5 minutes, under 5 minutes, I get a message from Matt Andonovski, and you see it right there. It says, if I ever see you wearing these shoes, I may never do another interview with you again. So this guy bleeds his team, right? Yep. So that's something you want as a Sens fan, right? You want loyalty. Like he bleeds Kitchener Rangers blue. He's going to bleed the colors of the Ottawa Senators. I actually did an interview with him after he signed his contract. We did a Zoom interview, and we mentioned that. And he said to me, he goes, did you buy the shoes? I need to know, because if you did, we're cutting this interview short right now. It's over. Yeah. And I did not buy the shoes.
Okay. That's what we're all waiting for. Okay.
I'm not saying it's because Matt said that, but I'm not saying it wasn't a factor.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at the top right part of your shoe shelf there, and those look like green and yellow shoes to me. I don't know.
Here?
No, there.
That's black and yellow. Bill's his
Black and
colorblind.
yellow.
We're finding it out
Okay,
on,
black and yellow.
Just making
sure.
Waterloo
Just
Warriors.
making sure.
Yeah.
Where's the red, black, and
The
gold?
only green I have here, I have some minty green here, and I've got some Adidas that are white with a green because I need something to wear on St. Patrick's Day. That's all.
Nice.
So Sean, everybody's wondering, are you turning pro with Matt? Are you going to be there with a jujube ready for him for warm up?
I'll have to find out. I got to find out what he needs, and if he needs, I'm a team player. So we'll see.
That's awesome. Hey, Sean, how much do you keep up with the guys who were in Kitchener? Do you try to follow their careers as they leave and move on to pro hockey?
All the time. And I say this regularly. Growing up, I had my teams. I was a Flames guy, and then I was a Leafs guy. But I no longer have an NHL affiliation. No offense. I follow my guys. That's the thing. So wherever my guys are, that's who I'm cheering for. So I'm a Colorado Avalanche fan when Gabriel Landeskog is playing, and I'm an Ottawa Senators fan when you're drafting all of our players. It does. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan when Arbor Jackeye signs a new contract. I know.
We'll censor that. It's all good.
But these are our people, right? So at the end of the day, players are one thing, hockey is one thing, people is another.
Very well said. So what's the thought on Donovan Sabrango's season? It felt like he came on strong in the second half. He's one of our candidates next year to kind of move into a top 4 role with Belleville and really help what should be a solid team take a step to the next level.
I mentioned this when we were talking last year. I'm such a big Donovan Sabrango guy, and I love everything about him. And I just see progress every year, right? And sometimes you see those 5, 6, 7, 10-year careers before you're in the NHL. I don't think that's going to be him, but I see you don't want to see the regression, right? I see some players right now that were AHL All-Stars in their first year out of junior, and then kind of spin their tires a bit in the AHL, maybe go back to the E for a bit and back up to the A, and now they don't see the NHL as an option in the future and sign a contract in Europe, which is smart financially. You're seeing that a lot more. I don't see that happening with Donovan. I see, I saw one of our Kitchener Rangers, I don't want to mention any names, but I saw coming out, boom, and then and then going to Europe now. Donovan is making that, it's not as steep, but it's happening. And I think this year was a really good year for Donovan in terms of strength and in terms of leadership and in terms of comfort with the level that he's playing at. And I think you're only going to see more and more things. And I think he's going to be a pretty firm part of your future.
Yeah, we're hoping we can see Sabrango get a little more time in Belleville in the American Hockey League this season. Now, final question for me, Sean, and this has been awesome having you back. Speaking of former Rangers that have moved on, but also Kitchener Sens, Thomas Humera, he was with the Kitchener Rangers for a few years, and then he gets traded to the Brantford Bulldogs midway through the season. What, in your opinion, what kind of happened with him in the Rangers system? Because it just seemed like he wasn't getting the opportunities he felt he wanted, and the Rangers kind of were like, we can appreciate where you're coming from. We're going to move you to a spot where we think you can get better opportunities. Is that kind of the idea of what happened there?
That's what was told to us, and that's what I believe happened. And knowing Tomas how I do, and I talked to him before the trade, right after the trade, during his time in Brantford, and I saw him in the playoffs when he actually came to a playoff game at the Odd when he was injured and he had a walking boot on, and he came to see his old Rangers teammates. Nice. The goal is the NHL, right? And Tomas is going to be an NHL defenseman. And here there was a lot of opportunity for him, but now there's a pretty thick D-core. And when I mentioned those top 2 pairings, Andonovski and Brustevich, you're not going to change that. No. Simon Motu is one of your overagers, and Cameron Reed is your star captain of the future, who will be a first-round NHL pick, potentially even top 10. Okay. You want to develop him with a vet like Motu. So like I said, those top 4 were locked in. Tomas Hammer is not a third-line D-pairing guy. He's just not. And then the rumors were swirling that Roman Schmidt was coming back. Yeah. And did that mean Roman Schmidt as a 4th overager was going to get traded, which I thought all along he would. It's just kind of some bonus picks that you were going to get. Or in the interim before he got traded, or if you kept him, well, that just pushes Tomas down one spot even further. And that's really unfair to a guy who's in a year that's looking to get some eyes on him and be a lot more noticed, right? He's already been drafted, but in terms of his opportunities going forward, and I will say this, I think I mentioned this last time we spoke, there's not a more positive guy at the rink. Always smiling, always happy, never complaining. I never saw one bit of negativity. If you told me Tomas Hammer sat in an office and said, I want to trade, I'd have a hard time believing that. I think it was just the Senators wanted more playing time for him, or whoever, his manager, his agent, whatever. The Tomas Hammer team fairly wanted more playing time for him. And that wasn't going to happen in Kitchener, and not because of Tomas, just because of what Kitchener's goals were. I think Brantford was a great landing spot for him. I got to go see him there a couple times, and he loved his teammates there. He loved the environment there. And obviously the Hamilton-Ottawa connection keeps things a little closer to home for him. And maybe that contributed into the factor. Maybe that was a factor in the trade destination. I don't know. I don't know the inner workings. I'm just a TV host. But I think it was a great spot for him. And I will say this, when I talked to Matt Andonovski and when I talked to Lucas Ellinas about being at development camp right after the draft, both of them said, man, it was so great to see Hammer there. It was so great for the three of us to be together. So, I mean, despite the fact that he's wearing these colors in Brantford, he's still one of the guys. And those three are a great unit together. So there's your Kitchener Sens.
Well, Sean, really appreciate your time, and we'll maybe see you in Ottawa down the road with a pack of jujubes. I'll make sure to ask for one when Ando's getting ready for warm-up. But I think that fans of the Senders really do appreciate the insight on all these prospects. And when they look, they're like, wait, this guy led the OHL in plus-minus, second in PIMS. Like, who is this guy? So it's great to get some insight into the player itself.
And remember, he did this last year, okay? He's got another year. He's going to be – cut this clip right now because you're going to use it later. Matthew Andonovski will be the best defenseman in the OHL this season. Woo. Bank on it.
Those are strong words from the man himself. Sean Furfaro, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Now you're a recurring guest, which means you have to come on whenever we ask. So we'll do this again down the road soon.
Happy to be part of the crew.
Stick tap to Sean. You heard it there. Matthew Andonovski will be the best defenseman in the OHL this season. But could a trade be in order? Because since we recorded that interview right before I went on my trip, Pilsy, they already traded their top forward, Carson Raycomp, to the Mississauga Steelhead. So clearly they're gearing up for when they host the Memorial Cup in a few years. So I'm really intrigued to see what Matthew Andonovski's final junior season will hold.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Rangers go through the season. Sean mentions he thinks the Rangers are going to have a chance at hosting the Mem Cup in 2027, I believe it was. So they're in that cycle of the OHL where you're like, let's get a boatload of picks and prospects so that in 3 years' time, when we're ready to host, we're going to be the powerhouse team. So there could be some changes for the Kitchener Sens.
The trade was outrageous. It was one of those classic junior trades. They got 3 second-round picks, 3 third-round picks, 3 fourth-round picks, and a 7th-round pick for one player.
Wow.
Pretty unreal when you think about it, but that's neither here nor there. We'll have Sean on as things develop with the Kitchener Rangers throughout the season. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Yes, final thoughts for me is Sens Twitter has been in a divided state based on the Leams Martian saying he is done with the Sens mascot, Sparta Cat. No, I want Sparta Cat to stay. Keep Sparty with the Sens. Now, Ross, you mentioned that you want to keep Sparty, but add another mascot. I could be interested in that. But look, I think the divide was very clear, Ross. I feel like every single Sens fan that had kids was like, what are you talking about, Martian? Sparty is awesome. My kids love Sparty. It's a big part of the game day experience. And for people that aren't really interested in the kind of kids entertainment side of the game, they could care less. And they're like, get this goofy cat out of here. We already got rid of one cat on the Ottawa Senators. He's long gone. So maybe Martian just wants to clear all the cats. He wants all dogs. We know he's mentioned that. So I get that. But I like Sparty. As a hashtag mascot guy, I know what Sparty goes through, and I respect him. Sparty stays.
Look, even the Ottawa 67s have 2 mascots. They got the puck, and then they've got like the raccoon running around. What's better than one mascot? How about 2? I mean, this cat's 32 years old. Let him just have a section or 2 where he chills that. We don't need him running around up and down the stairs. Let's get 2.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
I think almost like Grand Joe. Hey, the Red Blacks mascot, Big Joe. He's you put a Spartan uniform on him, you might be in the mix here. So I think they need like a Roman centurion type, like a human mascot. And hey, put a leash on Sparty, and you've got a pretty cool Roman centurion with a lion as a pet. Like that's
Sparty doesn't want to be leashed up, Ross.
That's true.
That's an outdoor cat.
He's out of his cage and doing just fine. But I like the August discourse of it. But no, Sparty stays for me too. I'm on Team Sparty for sure. And I clicked over to his Twitter profile and he follows us. So that's one way to get into our good books.
Let's get him on the show.
We can be bought. He doesn't talk, so I don't know how good of an interview. Imagine we had him on and then I just voiced over, like we dubbed in whatever we wanted him to say in that moment.
That would actually, let's try to do that. I think there's something there for sure.
All right. Final thoughts from me. Alaska is awesome when you get sun. Yeah. We got so lucky. We get on the cruise and the people are coming off in Vancouver. Like this is the first time we've seen the sun in a week.
And saying that getting to Vancouver, like you're saying something, it rains there a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, we get to Vancouver, Bluebird Day. Next day, Bluebird Day. We get on the boat, blue. And then we get to Anchorage finally, and it was gray. And I was like, if the whole trip was like this, it would have been a completely different experience. But it was a bucket list item for the family. All 12 of us went. It was a wild crew. And man, highly recommend Alaska. We got to see, I posted it on Twitter, actually. You can see it. But we were like bear watching and looking for sea otters. And I'm watching the bear. I'm videotaping. He goes in the water. Boom. He's got a salmon in literally half a second.
Nice.
Maybe the Sens need a bear mascot.
Yeah, well, they got a Bruin. They got Linus Ullmark, so that'll help. That's sweet. Yeah, Alaska, I always picture it just like cold and snowy. And when you get to see the summer images, it looks amazing. So I'm glad you had a good time, buddy.
Yeah, it was great. But now I'm ready for October, ready for Sens hockey, waiting for that final confirmation for the home opener. And then we can really start going full pedal to the metal, maybe even a little double dip with the Saturday game in Montreal. Sens hockey, as we mentioned at the start of the show. Well, Sens hockey, I need to be 1,000% on the work front before I get too excited, but it's looking very, very likely for the double dip. Talk about enemy territory, Pills. We've been to games together in Toronto, but Montreal will be a completely different universe. Sens hockey can't come soon enough. We will have your team every day until then. We've got our organizational value rankings coming up later this summer. We're going to chat with Kevin Riedler next week, Senators goalie prospect. He was awesome in that mic'd up video they did. And my final thoughts, I haven't been on the show since Ian Mendez and Sylvain Saint-Laurent got hired by the Sens, and I just want to say 3 words: best in class. Those guys are awesome, and the Sens fans are going to see an immediate difference in how players are made available to members of the media and to idiots like us.
Okay.
Oh, man. This has been great to be back. We'll be back Wednesday. We'll have another Sens Central Citizen. Last 2 have been awesome. I mean, they've all been awesome, but the last 2 in particular, hot takes in the middle of summer. We love that. We'll have more of those this Wednesday. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.